All right, welcome everyone to a brand new video. So in this video, episode number 6, what we're going to be doing is we're going to continue from the last video. And what I'm going to show you all how to do is how to actually load up the guild configurations, how to actually use the correct prefix for the guild. Okay. So right now we're using the hard-coded prefix. Okay. So right over here, it's a question mark. If I use a $sign, and let's restart the bot right now. Let's go back to the server. It should just work, okay? But it's not using the actual prefix that was set in the database, okay? So we need to, the goal of this video is to literally get it to work, get it to use the actual prefix from the database. So how do we do that? Well, there's a couple ways that we can do this. One, what we can do is inside the message event, every single time a message is sent, we can fetch the database, and we can check the guild, and then we can also just check the prefix. Okay? If the prefix is valid, then we can continue. If it's not, then we'll do nothing. But obviously, that's kind of not really efficient, because that means, let's say, for example, if your bot is in, let's say, 5,000 guilds, maybe 10,000 guilds, you can imagine there's probably going to be like thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of message events that are being sent at once, right? And you can imagine that's literally going to be about a million a million database calls, and that is obviously going to use up a lot of resources. It's not really efficient. So a better thing to do is to save the prefix, save the configurations in memory. Once you've saved it in memory, you can just reference it every single time. Now, the downside to that is if there are updates to anything in the guild configuration, the memory store wouldn't necessarily be updated automatically. You'd have to do it yourself, but that's not really a huge problem. But it's obviously definitely a lot better than making a million database calls in like 1 second. Because let's say if your bot scales to 100,000 guilds, which is realistic. There's a lot of bots that are in like millions of guilds, right? And you can imagine that if those bots are in like the large guilds that have tons of users that send like thousands of messages per second, yeah, you can imagine that's going to literally spam your database. Okay, so how do we achieve saving all of the guild configurations in memory? Well, it's really simple. What we're going to do is whenever we start up the bot, all we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and literally fetch every single guild configuration. And then we're just going to attach it to the client object. Now, before in the previous version of Discord.js, I think in version 12, they actually used to have something called structures, but that was deprecated in version 13. I don't think you can actually still use it in version 13. But again, it's deprecated, so you probably shouldn't use it, because even if you can use it still, in future versions it's going to be removed. It's going to be slowly opted out, so I would highly recommend not using structures now. But they were really nice in my opinion. But since we don't have structures anymore, the way we can do this is we can actually just attach a property to the client object, and we can just add literally all of that to it, and we can literally, and it's literally just going to be a map, really, or a collection, a Discord.js collection. So to do that, what we're going to do, we're going to go look for this client instance of Discord client. Okay, so this client.ts file is a custom class that I created personally, but literally all it does is it literally just extends the client class, and that's literally it. It doesn't do anything else. The reason why I did this is because it allows me to actually properly define actual fields instead of actually just, like in JavaScript, you can just dynamically attach fields like this, like client dot commands equals new map. But in TypeScript, it won't let you do that. And I personally really like the way that you did it in JavaScript. I personally prefer having it, strongly typed. So what we're going to do inside the Discord client class, all we're going to do is we're just going to add a new field called configs, and it's literally just going to be a new collection. And you can see that we already have it set up already. We already have collection imported from Discord.js. And this is just literally going to be a collection of IDs, which is just going to be guild IDs, right? And it's just going to map to a bunch of guild configuration. Now, I'm not sure why. Hold on 1 second. What is going on? It's going to map to a bunch of guild configuration instances. Okay. So there shouldn't be any problems here right now. If we check the logs, if the logs do want to show up, that is, there we go. Yeah, there aren't any issues right now, which is good. Let me go ahead and see something real quick. We should probably also write a getter and setter for this, because we are dealing with a private field. So get configs, turn this dot underscore configs. Okay, and it's just going to return a collection. Remember, string. It's really actually Snowflake, but we'll just use string for now. It's going to return a collection of guild IDs that map to guild configuration. Okay. We also do need to write a setter for this because we are going to need to set this. Okay. And the way that we're going to set this, let me see. So all we're really going to do is we're just going to fetch literally every single guild configuration, and we're going to pass it in. And yeah, I think I have the right idea. So let me see, set configs. So we're going to need to take in configs, and this is literally just going to be a, so, okay, before I do this, we actually need to do one thing real quick. So this is going to be a little bit tricky, actually. What we need to do is we need to fetch literally every single guild config first. So in order to do that, we need to actually get the repository. So let's first start off with getting the repository, because that's what's going to allow us to actually fetch the database. So once we've made the database call, we can actually talk to the database. So const config repo. Okay. There shouldn't be any issues with that. Let's just double check the logs, make sure everything's okay. Okay, good. Now we're going to go ahead and do const guild configs equals await config repo dot find. So this will literally just find every single guild configuration for us. Okay. Now remember, like I said, this will literally find even the ones where the bot is not in there. So you know, you might want to consider. I mean, maybe what you could do is, instead of just deleting the guild configuration, you can actually set like a field, like a status field, and that status field can be either, you know, in the guild or not in the guild, right? Available or unavailable, and you can just filter that out. But we'll worry about that later. We don't want to get too technical right now. But that's just something that I want to tell you all, so that way, if you guys want to try to figure out how to solve these certain problems, you will know. But this will literally, let's just console log this, make sure it's giving us that one guild config. Okay, so it's an array. So because it's an array, we can't just pass in a collection, but we can easily just configure this just fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, for the setter, we'll go ahead and do set configs. And this will literally just take in an array of guild configuration instances. Okay. So ultimately what we're doing, what's going on here? Let's see what's going on here. A return type of get must assign to its sets. Oh, okay, that's fine. No, that's okay. So this dot configs, I think all we gotta do is return. As long as we do that, that should be okay. I'm not sure. Oh wait, we can't do that. So I don't think it's gonna let us. Will it let us? Sets. I don't think this is gonna work either, because we have. Let's see. What's the problem here? Okay, yeah. It seems like we can't just pass in this array like that, so that's kind of annoying. Let me see. Yeah, this is kind of the reason why I don't really like these default getters and setters that JavaScript has by default, because it's kind of limited. Instead, what I'm gonna do, honestly, I'm just gonna cheat a little bit. I don't have to follow this. I'll just do this. set configs. I'm gonna just create my own. I don't really care. The only difference really is that when you call get configs, it just literally calls a method. And if you use like the getter, you'll literally just do client.prefix. That's literally all it does, really. So honestly, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter too much. We'll worry about we'll worry about cleaning this up later. Okay, so for set configs, we're gonna take in guild configs. And this is just going to be an array of guild configuration. If we really wanted to, we could have just done everything inside the async function over here, but I don't want to do that. We're going to pass in this array, and what we're going to do is in this array, guild configs for each. So for each config, we're literally just going to call this dots configs dot set. We're going to pass in config dot guild ID, and then we're going to just pass in the config. Just like that. So that'll literally just populate the config for us. Okay? So now all we got to do is, once we fetch the guild configs, we just literally call client.setConfigs, pass in guild configs, and this is a synchronous operation. And then we can go ahead and do client.getConfigs like this. And it literally just calls as a method. And you can see we should have a collection now. And we can we have our guild ID over there. Okay. If we were to just do it with the regular getter and setter, the way that I see doing that, we'd probably just have to do this. Honestly, we could just create a collection and then just pass in as a pass that in. But honestly, I really don't think it matters too much. But I'll just go back to the getter and setter, just to do that for now. Just to stay in the same pattern. So let's fix that real quick before we continue, because we want to stay consistent. So I was kind of just brainstorming a little bit. Apologize for that. But let's go and do this. So we have the array. So we'll go and do const config mappings equals new collection. So literally all we got to do is just create a new collection and just map every single string to a guild configuration. And then literally what we're doing here with the guild configs, we just do the same thing. So guild configs for each config. And yeah, we're probably gonna have to get rid of that top. I don't think there's gonna be a problem, but we will get rid of that anyways. So config mappings set config.guild ID. Remember, it's guild ID, not ID, because when we actually reference this map, we're gonna search by, we're gonna get the actual configuration by the guild ID. Okay. So we're just gonna do this, and we can actually just clean this up a little bit by just removing the curly braces, because we're not gonna be doing anything else anyways. So we set that, and then all we gotta do is just pass this collection in. So yeah, we can just go back to the regular getters and setters. And I honestly prefer that a lot better in my opinion, because we already have it already. And okay, so let's do set configs. So literally for this set configs, this is literally just going to take in guild configs, which is just literally just going to be a collection. It has to match this instance or this type. As long as it does, then that's fine. And then we do this .configs equals guild configs, and we are good. So now all we gotta do is just do client.configs equals config mappings. I'm just gonna call this configs. Okay, and then now we can just do client.configs, and we can see the same result is produced. Okay, pretty cool. All right, so what's next from here is now that we have the configuration loaded in memory, we can literally reference this config anywhere we want. You're gonna notice now that we have that, our prefix is not gonna work because we actually got rid of that. Right, it's not gonna work, so we got to get it to work. So let's do that. So let's go inside the message event. Okay, and you can see over here, we're checking to see if client.prefix, if message.const starts with client.prefix. But client.prefix currently is not even, it's actually null, right? So how do we address this? So there's a couple things that we could do. Since we're gonna have different guilds with different prefixes, it's not wise to just set a client.prefix. Instead, well, we already have client.configs, right? So we know which guild, we know how to get the client config. The way we do that is very simple. Inside the message event, we're going to do const config equals client.configs.gets. And we're going to remember it's a collection, so we're going to, and it maps the guild ID to the guild configuration. So we're going to do message.guild. I guess we could do guild ID. That's a thing now. What's going on over here? What's going on here? Type of argument string or null is not assignable to string. I guess it seems like it's because message is possibly null. I think that'd be a problem if intents are not opted in, but that's kind of annoying though. I'm just gonna use the question mark operator. That's kind of lame. Type of string or null is not assignable to. Yeah, so message.guild ID might be null. Okay, I guess we'll do another check if no message return. Yeah, it's kind of annoying. Or actually, I'll do this. There we go. So if so const config equals message, or sorry, client.configs.gets. There we go. Why is it still doing that? It's saying guild. Okay, so it's apparently it's complaining about guild ID. Yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna do that. I don't really care. I'm just gonna use an exclamation mark to assert that. I don't think it should be null though, in my opinion. As long as we have the correct intent, I don't think it should be a null. I don't think it should be null. And as long as we're not using like cache messages or stuff like that, or partials, I don't think there should be a problem anyways. Okay, so let's go ahead and log config. So we have to test everything one by one, okay? So let's send a message. You're going to see that the config will be logged with the correct guild, okay? Which is good. And we have all the information. We have the prefix. We have the welcome channel ID. Now, we do need to make sure we check to see if the config is in fact available. Now, theoretically, the config should actually be available because whenever the bot joins the server, it's going to literally create the configuration. But you know, stuff might happen. So as a backup, you could create a command to allow the user to initialize the bot. But we want to always do as much error checking as possible, or null checking as possible. So we will check to see if there is no config. We'll just simply say message.channel. Let's send guild configuration was not. You know, let's just do this. If there's no config, I mean, we can also do default. Like, we can just check to see if it's question mark, but for now, I'll just leave it alone. I'll just say no configuration sets. And we'll return, even though this will ignore all additional like messages, even if they're non-commands. We'll leave that. We'll just leave it like this for now. So if there's no config, we'll return. Okay, but there should be a config though, so there's no problem. Now that we know there's a config, you can see if it starts with config.prefix. Okay, so if message.content that starts with config.prefix, and that's, oh yeah, we also have to change client.prefix, change to config.prefix. And I think that's all we really need to change. Everything else seems okay. Let's test this out. So the prefix is question mark. There we go, it works. We are using the prefix that's coming from the database now. Okay, and that is pretty much it for this video. I know it was pretty lengthy. I do apologize, but I just, you know, I kind of did dabble on. I kind of did talk too much, but it's okay. Hopefully, you all understand this whole process. Okay, the whole point of what we were doing, and it's very important that I went over this so that way you all understand it. Now we don't need to worry about having the hard-coded values. Okay, and if we have any additional guild that is adding our bot, literally the same procedure will happen. One more thing that I should mention is that we haven't accounted for the case where if a new server adds our bot, the configuration is not going to be added to the config, but we can do that very easily by just modifying the guild create event, and we're gonna do that in the next episode. So after this episode, we're gonna do that. In the next episode, what we're gonna do is we're gonna create another Discord server just so that we can make sure that our bot is working in multiple different servers, like we're like we're saying, and there shouldn't be any problems. And what's going to happen is we're going to, when we create the configuration, we're going to make sure that it adds the configuration to the actual client.config. Remember, that's the in-memory store. Okay. So yeah, I will see you all in that next episode. Peace out.